This is Maharajas of Scale, a podcast where we go behind the scenes and talk to founders who are demolishing the myths around building and scaling a big business in India. These are the stories that have shattered the assumptions around Indian consumers and are changing the game completely. I am Krishna serial entrepreneur, co-founder of Flit, the fashion locator in town, and startup mentor, bringing you these stories. Hey everyone, hey listeners, this is Krishna from Maharajas of Scale. Today we have Deep Bajaj with us, who's done, or rather doing, a terrific job with something that's a taboo amongst all of us. That has got to do with personal hygiene. For the world of me, when I go around in India, this is a question that I constantly keep asking myself. How do people really take care of personal hygiene? And if I have to be a little more clear, how do people really go pee? So it's a big problem. It's one of those elephants in the room kind of a question, which Deep has taken head on and solving it big time. Deep, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me over, Krishna. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So Deep, tell us about yourself a little bit and what you're working on right now.
I have a startup by the name of Sirona Hygiene. If I could share what we do in one sentence, it'll be that we are a startup which identifies and solves those intimate and feminine hygiene issues faced by women which are unaddressed or partly addressed in our country. We do it with our three solutions. We have in the toilet hygiene, because toilets are a huge issues for women when they're out. We have Peebuddy, which is India's first female urination device using which women can stand and pee. We have in the menstrual hygiene space, Sirona, the mother brand, where we have taken on issues like lack of sustainable menstrual hygiene products, menstrual cramps, rashes in intimate areas with our products in the Sirona brand, and the family hygiene range under Bodyguard by Sirona. So Sirona as a startup stands for solving hygiene issues for people in India.
What's behind the name?
So Sirona means Celtic goddess of hygiene. So she's a deity for healing and hygiene. And so when we were thinking about how to name this, this is something where we wanted to become synonymous with innovation in this space, when it comes to healing, and then menstrual cramps, rashes, pain, all of those things equated, in a way to a process where I think some sort of a divine intervention was required. So we thought, let it be Sirona as the mother brand, and she will take on all the healing and hygiene-related issues faced by women.
Interesting. In which mythology is this goddess a goddess for hygiene?
It is Celtic goddess of hygiene.
Celtic. Okay, interesting. How much did you have to research to find out that goddess?
Not much, when you're married and all these innovative things can come from your wife. So in my case, it just came from her. I was just told her that I want to do something which becomes synonymous with hygiene. By then, Peebuddy was already born, and we were looking to say that if we want to take on the bigger spectrum of the space. So she did come up with about 8-10 names. There was Hygia and whatnot, but I think Sirona is something that was home run for us.
Yeah, it sounds great. Have you heard of Kamakya?
Kamakya?
Yeah.
Kamakya Devi?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So funny that I think in Assam there is a temple and menstruation and everything around it is considered taboo in India, but that temple actually celebrates that event on a regular basis. Go figure. I guess our ancestors knew a thing or two about why we should not make these issues such a taboo, isn't it?
True. Yeah. These things I think in the last few decades, things have gone a little bad. Earlier, there were parts of us which were very forward thinking when it comes to our women.
Correct.
Off flight, I don't know what happened, but we thought we'll try to do something about it rather than just cribbing.
Sure. So we'll get into that a little more, but in terms of numbers, what sort of scale have you achieved, Deep?
Well, if you look at the kind of products that we have, they're all habit-changing products. You speak to 10 women in your life and ask them, do they face dirty toilet situation when they're traveling by railroad, metro, or long-haul flights? And the answer will be, oh yes, there are no friendly toilets for women. You ask them during pregnancy and arthritis, is it difficult for you to stand in, to find a toilet which is where you can sit and stand easily? And the answer will be no, there are hardly any toilets available like that. But when you tell them, will you stand and pee, there is always that little bit of that, the idea sounds exciting, it's excellent, but will I be able to do it?
Right.
So it's a habit-changing product. But still, I think Indian women have surprised me. We have been swept off our feed, because till date about 2 million units of Peebuddy have been sold. And today, women were runners, marathon runners, trekkers, joggers, swimmers. A lot of doctors prescribe it for issues during pregnancy and arthritis. So in India, I would say about 2 million units in the last 3.5, 4 years of our being.
And that is fabulous. More power to women.
Yeah, well, thanks a ton. It's all because of them only. And similarly, if you look at the menstrual hygiene range, this countries, we've always spoken about pads as a product, while we were one of the first ones, or the strongest advocates rather, for usage of menstrual cups as a product.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a habit-changing product. You're used to pads, you just slap them on your panties and it keeps absorbing the blood. Women are also, some of them are used to tampons, but menstrual cup is a different ballgame altogether. And at Sirona, we've converted about 300,000 women to our cups in India alone, which means tons and tons of non-degradable waste saved from going to landfills. And at the same time, 3 lakh women have chosen, I would say, a better alternative to what they were earlier using.
Yeah.
So those two, I would say, are scales where I feel proud of. And other than that, yes, we sell about 45,000, ship about 45,000 orders every month. And that all started with just one order. So all that scale is okay. But I would say the two numbers which I feel really happy about, because this is where you've actually made a difference.
This is impact.
I would say this is the closest to impact as a word that we get. We don't use this term much. What we say is, how many lives were we able to touch?
Yeah.
So if a lady is pregnant, if there's somebody who's suffering from arthritis, if there's somebody whose immunity is deficient and they don't want to contract any sort of infections while on the go, and if Peebuddy comes to their rescue, our day is made. And we've had a lot of testimony that's coming through that route. And there are women who have PCOS, PCOD, who were tired of just scouting for pads at the last hour. Our cups help them. Then we also heard from some these waste management agencies saying how because of the way to go forward for India, if possible, should be the cups than the pads. So that's how we look at what we've been able to do.
That's awesome. In fact, my wife is one of the earliest adopters of the cup, and a couple of years ago she discovered it, and there was obviously a bit of a learning curve, and she loved it so much. Her father's village, which is 100 odd kilometers from Bangalore, she said, you know what, this is something that women struggle with. In fact, the taboo is so strong that obviously women are supposed to be confined to a space and not come out, right? So those are some beliefs around it. So when you go to the villages, it takes on a completely different meaning, some sort of an untouchable kind of a meaning for those 4 or 5 days. She said, this is something I want to help with. Would you support us donating a few hundred cups? So we did that. We sponsored it a couple of years ago. Yeah. And the funny thing is, sorry, you were saying something.
Please go ahead. You finished that. It's a beautiful loop.
Yeah. I was saying my wife is not a very outspoken lady, but for her to come forward, in fact, you should have seen her being out there talking to all these young high school girls and women and telling them and giving them confidence, saying that, hey, you know what? I'm a little bit of an introverted, shy girl like you, but that should not stop you from doing anything of this sort. This is highly hygienic. And she shared her own experience, and then I was elated. So to see you do this at scale is really, truly rewarding. In many ways, I believe we underestimate the kind of inconveniences these sort of things cause. So yeah.
You should thank her on my behalf. In fact, on the entire team's behalf, we have 50 of us who would love to speak to her. And get her feedback, because we also do we have three tenets on the company side. Like, we go after problems which women face, intermittent menstrual hygiene unaddressed. On the product side, good for her, good for environment, good for society. Now, why I brought this up is, when our good for society, we work with, what we do is we take out money out of every product that we sell, and we use it to fund our own paid forward campaigns. And one of the campaigns which is the closest, again, I would say, to our hearts, is when we work with traffic sex workers and we give them pads at no cost. We give them our cups at no cost to them. And we do it in Delhi. We've had a project done in other parts of the country. We're also doing a project in Malawi right now as we speak. And this is all that we've been telling so many of policymakers, at least whoever we are in touch with, that, cups is the way forward on this space, especially for the marginalized and the ones who are, at the bottom of the pyramid. So I'm hats off to her to have done this on her own And we would love to, maybe if she has any more villages or any more communities which she feels she can impact, we'd love to donate it, because we do it. We anyways do it.
Absolutely. I'm sure we can facilitate that and help you take this forward a lot more. It's an impact product. It's not necessarily an exciting product. For the one that is solving it, it is definitely exciting, because I can imagine the kind of freedom, right? This freedom, in fact, being liberated from, this monthly event that women go through, the kind of exhilaration that they must be experiencing in their lives. How did you hit upon this?
So yeah, it all started with Peebuddy as the first discovery for us. I come from events as a background. 2006 till 2010, it was events. 2011 till 2014, I was into handmade carpets with my wife. And it was at the end of 2013 that I started talking to her, saying, I would want to do something which is a little more than just now selling, because events also all throughout, I was in the selling side of the business. I exited that business in 2010 for a reason that I wasn't able to create any IP that I was proud of. So, my partner, 10 years my senior, I still love the guy. He would always think that why do I want to do something else while the business was doing very well? And I told him, it just wasn't exciting. Then I got into handmade carpets because I had to do something. You had to run the house, and that opportunity came along, and she was anyways planning to started the international hospitality division. It stabilized in a couple of years, and towards the end of it, it was at a stage where I thought, now it's time for me to do something for which I actually left events. So it was on a road trip in 2013 when 4 couples were traveling together, and I was having fun with everyone, saying, see, men are so blessed, we can drink whatever, do whatever, and girls can't even drink on road trips because they're always wary of finding an unfriendly toilet on the way. So at that stage, a friend's wife suggested that she had seen someone in Europe use a plastic makeshift contraption to stand and pee. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, she said there was a bottle that she saw being cut in half, and that woman stood and peed. So it's not that men are any superior, women can also do it. So that joke somewhere, I think, like the great Steve Jobs said, it's only in hindsight that you can join the dots. This must have happened. So my days at events, where we would organize large-scale concerts, and because I was in sales, business development, conceptualizing stage, customer experience was very close to me, and one could not, no matter how hard you try, the porta potties can never be kept clean after half an hour or 1 hour.
Right.
Then I observed during our pregnancy that, and we'd had one miscarriage before that, so it was a very sensitive second attempt at it, and we had to travel in her 8th month, and that's not a month where you suggested to travel too much. You're scared of infections, you're scared of any emergency, but we had to travel. And I remember, we couldn't even afford it back then, but I upgraded a flight from Delhi to Dubai for this particular meeting, and toilet, again, it's a common toilet, they got bad. And my mother had arthritis, so in the knees. So when she just said it, and it appeared in my realm of possibilities, while everybody laughed it off, I thought, well, if it is a possibility, why is it not here? Why can we not have it here? Why can I not do something about it? And so that's how the first thing started. Peebuddy came into being. I decided that I'll exit whatever else I was doing. I had committed to another project, which I exited. Registered the company in 2015 when we got our design patent, and 2016 onwards started scaling this business. And from one product led to another, to third, to fourth, to fifth. So that's how it evolved. Yeah. And period pain, for instance, was something that Rashi would experience. And now that you had solved one part of the problem, one would get a lot of happiness if customers started sharing great feedback. A lot of customers started sharing what other issues were they facing and how they wanted us to solve. So that's how one thing led to another, as they say, is a history in the making still.
Man, that's heady stuff. So let's dive in a little more into the product development itself. If you watched Batman, or while that is a dramatized version of Arunachalam Muruganantham, the real Batman, the first time I watched his talk was on this platform called Ink Talks, maybe about a decade ago. And I literally had tears in my eyes because of the amount of misunderstanding that came about between him and his family and his mother, and when he was accused of being a pervert and things like that.
Yeah.
So given that this is such a touchy and a sensitive topic, what challenges did you face in the design and actual creation of the initial product itself?
So, when I started about this, there was never a blueprint business plan available. So I think because events also from zero to whatever we were doing was scale, and carpets also I had started from zero, there were always that part of me which knew that things will take time. So that unsaid acceptance to the fact that it is difficult, it is very, very challenging. That acceptance was anyways there. So there were no, and that's why there were no expectations to say this will be an overnight success. Yes, there were hopes that people would be more open to this, because when I did my focus groups initially with 100 women and we asked them, is this a problem? It was a well-meant 100% yes. Not even one said it's not a problem. When I proposed the solution, they said, oh wow, yes, why not? But when it came to trying, there were still inhibitions, and they still are, because it's something that you're not used to. So, and initially it was all the more difficult because not only was the concept new, coming from a team of men trying to solve it was there. How do you sell? Where do you sell? I took it to certain stores who just thought it's a gag product, shoot us away. And then things started to get better with time, when doctors and some of these event companies started to see value in it. But challenges, media was initially shy to write about it because it had the word P in it. Obviously, there were a lot of jokes about, so I remember once this leading publication did a story on us. It was BBC actually. So on the Hindi version of the story, on the English version, I got a lot of praises, because it all reached out to all the millennials, and I would say the urban India. And the Hindi version have had the best of galis. They said, what kind of privileges you're giving to our women? This is against our tradition. This is against our values and whatnot. So it came to a point where, first of all, media was not writing. The media that wrote the Hindi one backfired. I wouldn't say backfired, but it was not in good taste, right? I was just trying to solve a problem. Then there were stores which are not willing to keep it. And team was difficult to get by. Sales were very, very low. So yeah, and investors, obviously in India, it's challenging when you're trying to do something really habit changing. So yeah, the list is long, my friend. I can't really pinpoint one, but those are some of the challenges.
Interesting. But the product development itself, right, Deep, this is not a product. One, creating products in India, designing them, 3D printing them, and then trying out various versions. It's not exactly, India doesn't have a huge ecosystem of things like that. While there are successful companies, that is on the one hand, right? So on the other hand, obviously is, a product of this sort needs more than one person to try it on and then tell you, hey, you know what, this works, there's no leakage, I don't feel any of that. So that's the initial part. And then comes when the product really goes out into the wild, how does the world perceive it? What sort of initial established notions does it challenge? So looks like you make it look like, like Hanuman, you just flew all over those, all about those challenges. But would love for you to take a deep dive and see how you solve them. How did you come out on top of that?
So, I think that's why there is a reason why you would not get a lot of negatives or some sad stories from me, because I don't really keep a track of it. So as a habit, we write one good thing of the day that happens. At the organization level also, that's a habit that when you're sending a report, every day it has to have a closure which says one good thing of the day, and it doesn't need to be work related. And that's how we've I would say designed ourselves or coded ourselves to not really look at things which pull us down, because for every 10 things that pull us down, there are 2 to 3 good things that change our orbit. So I would really have to deep dive into bad days. There have been many. So obviously financially, it gets draining. At the customer level, initially it was about, because you were still doing it with friends. I had about 10 odd friends, who, these are women who were happy to try the pilots. We made a lot of shapes. We initially took, if you remember back in the days when, have you ever ran out of fuel on your bike?
Yeah, many times.
Yeah, so so I have done, I think, so many times that has happened. So that funnel was always there, because see, the minute it entered in the realm of possibilities, that it is a possibility through a funnel. So bottle was always there as an inspiration.
Right.
Boats were there. We had ship. The boats that we used to make.
Right.
Many shapes. But once it came to a shape, initial few lots were, you are right, there was no 3D printing. There is still, the ecosystem is I would say rather poor there to be able to develop something from scratch, or at least I'm not very well still connected. So initially it was about all the cardboards and paper cuttings that we did. And then we took it to a regular printer to say, this is cardboard. And if you can print outer cartons and boxes, just print it, cut it, paste it in this shape and give it to me. And a lot of dresses soiled, a lot of friends who initially, gave their feedback for the final shape to be what it was. And then rest followed. So at the initial stage, yes, there were challenges on developing the product, getting them to try it. And every failure in the design meant you're going back to the drawing board. And so it took about good year and a half before this final shape was zeroed in on. And at the business level, I already shared that media would not write because it had P. Stores, initial days I'm saying. After that, I think media is the only thing which has built us into what we are today. And stores had problems, teams, all of those issues I've already shared here. But it will be very difficult for me to pinpoint some more gory stuff.
Well, the intent is not to force you to relive those memories. It's anything but that. And it's awesome that you have such a terrific attitude that when you have a bunch of things that happen to you, the average reaction is to remember the bad thing that happened and forget all the good things that happened. But as opposed to that, true to the saying that you should count your blessings, looks like that's what you've done. So all the more power to you. But you just said that when you initially conceptualized this, your wife was carrying. So along new product, new child, at that time must have been pretty challenging.
So yes, when you're trying to do something which is so much extreme in nature, your revenues don't come. So for the first few years, it was all savings that we lived off, or the business, the carpet business that took it. And it takes its own set of toll on your mental health. So yeah, that's thanks to a great family that one has, that one was able to see it through. And today there are, investor interest coming from their end, and then we are picking. So, like I said, because I write some of these things down, so bad days, I don't, but there are multiple good days that is something that, whenever I would have a not so good day, whether it is about people copying the products or people leaving or other stuff happening, I would think of, like you said, the blessings. So I remember one day we were just sitting and we were thinking, how much more money will this take? We are not making any money. We're just investing. Is this going to sell? Is this too ahead of its time? We had customers, no two ways about it. But were they enough to sustain an organization? Were they enough to just make it into a business? No, there were not many. So one fine day we got a call from this organization which organizes large marathons. I had written to them, spammed them, but there was no reply. And the CEO of this organization called Procam International, DJ, I remember him categorically, one of the few people who helped us initially. And he flew me down to Bombay at a day's notice, and he bought Peebuddies and gave it to all the women complimentary who were running the marathon. This is Standard Chartered Bombay Marathon. Then Airtel Delhi Marathon happened. TCS Bangalore Marathon happened. And so yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, it's something which makes it worthwhile. Also in my case, because now when I talk to some people who want to start up, I tell them that, in my case, the theory that has worked is I have these 3 rules that I follow. And I don't know if I can if I've overstepped on that. Do you want me to share those, or?
Go ahead. Please do.
So when they asked me that what kept us going, so I said when I started, one thing that I had realized by then was anything in my case particularly takes about 1,000 days before I crack it. And I'll give an example with events. First couple of 3 years, it was bloodbath. Last 2 years, we made good money. I was able to buy a house. I had enough money to invest into the carpet business and start that. Carpet couture, the same thing happened. First couple of years, bloodshed. It was a lot of tears, a lot of ups and downs. Your relationships take a toll because husband, wife in the same relationship. I started another startup in the home healthcare space, which tanked. So by the time it was time to do Sirona Hygiene, by the time it was Peebuddy, one thing was clear on the wall that, anything that I gave 1,000 dedicated days, anywhere where I was able to brave it all to say everything will happen. There'll be no funds to pay salaries. You'll have to take a loan against your house. People will copy. Everything will go wrong. But if you're able to see it for 1,000 days, you will see it through. So I had somewhere that, established by then. So that is the first advice that I give to anybody who comes to me to say, what does it take to start up? And I said 1,000-day commitment is the first. Second is a commitment to yourself to say that, no matter what happens, I will try to stay away from analysis paralysis, and I'm not God. I will not get all the decisions right. You take decisions. Some of them go right. Some of them go wrong. And that's the only thing. As long as you do it with your best interest, with your best intent, and give it all that you have, you're good. So 1,000 days, you're not God, things will go wrong. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Unfortunately, in our country, failures are not celebrated. It's only success. So that's your second pact with the devil, to say, I will take decisions. I'll not be married to the outcomes. And obviously, third is to keep yourself positive, no matter what. No matter what. That's your biggest role as an entrepreneur. So in my case, those three, because that is so deeply entrenched in the system, I tell it to my team members. I'm trying to implement it by saying their daily reports need to have good thing of the day. If they don't send it, I don't count it as a day's work done, no matter what they've achieved. And all of that has made us into, there's this organization which tries to look out for good things that happen. And that's our advice to everybody who's trying to start up.
Terrific. This is awesome stuff. I guess without this sort of a temperament, I don't think you would have gotten this far. So let's switch gears a bit and talk about the initial scale journey itself. When you launched, how was the initial launch? Obviously, you talked about the marathon already. What sort of acceptance, beyond what the media said, what sort of acceptance did you see? What sort of initial reactions did you see? And there is always this hype cycle and a death valley sort of a thing, right? Initially, it generates some momentum, some interest, and then you see a fall in the interest. Eventually, until some solid interest picks up. Did you see that sort of thing happen with your products as well, or Peebuddy?
Yes, in the case of Peebuddy, that happened. So with the marathon, we thought that whenever we would be at these marathons, the sale would go up and then it'll just die down, because those people are talking about for a while. It became very specific as a case to say that during running or when you're stepping out, you use it. The pregnancy arthritis side of it was not coming out, so we took it to the doctors in Delhi NCR, and they also saw more merit in it, and they started prescribing. But yes, the numbers were low. So in the case of Peebuddy, the writing was clear on the wall that this is because Rome wasn't built in a day. Even this product wouldn't be. So we kept at regular intervals tried activities to keep our customers reminded of it being a concept. And because we didn't have a lot of money, we still don't, and it's all a customer built organization. Last 2 years we've been bad positive. So the focus is always on trying to use elements where we know it'll reach the right audience at the most affordable rates possible. So we've created a lot of viral content. I would say we've created content that has gone viral, and that has resulted in those spikes. Now, first year it was very, very drastic. Like whenever we do something in the digital world, the sale would go 10x and then it'll just fall down. And now it has become a little more stable. I'd say that we are happy with the way brand has been growing year on year. So our yardstick is year on year. Have we done better year on year on Peebuddy as a concept? Are we adding new customers? Are we adding new markets? Similarly for Sirona and Bodyguard.
Interesting. In fact, first time that I actually heard of your product was last year, and when we were about to go on a Europe trip, and I have 2 kids. I have a 12-year-old daughter and a son who's 7 years old now, but he was 6 years back then. And when we Googled and researched about Europe, toilets and the fact that you need to pay and maybe occasionally they may not be accessible was something that came up. And that is when we actually discovered the product, Peebuddy. So at that point in time, I never imagined that I would be speaking to you and then having you on our show. But there you go.
Thank you so much.
So when did you hit 10,000? When did you hit your next 100,000? What were some of the first few milestones that you hit and gave you the confidence that this is not going, given the size of a country and the problem that exists, you definitely have miles to go. But otherwise, for you to say that, hey, this is a real thing, this is going to be a stable business, this is achieved some sort of a breakout, when did that sort of a realization happen?
I'd say first year was not even 10,000 units. Second year must be 30,000 odd units. It was only after, I would say, the third year. By third year was 500,000, for instance, And after that, it just kept growing. The realization came in at a point where when we took it so we were not, looking to raise any capital in this business, to be honest, initially. And in one of the events, we pitched at this show called Tie the Knot. It's called CNBC Young Turks, Tie the Knot. And that's where we got the investor interest, active investor interest. We pitched live. We were amongst the top 5. And once more and more people came in, in the team, is when the confidence started to rise. In some cases, a lot of influencers started writing about us on their own. So that was, I would say, the second milestone for us. And yes, there have been plenty of events where we have put up our stalls and have had crazy response. Like in the case of Pinkathon, which is an all-women's run, in 8 cities we created standing urinals, and every city we'd had 700 to 1,000 women who would just use those washrooms to stand and pee with Peebuddy. And so sum total of all these things put together has helped us realize that this is just not a product. It's something which can become a part of your lifestyle. And similarly for other products, like every year it's just going from strength to strength.
Awesome. I wanted to say this a few minutes ago when you talked about the 1,000 days, and I totally agree with you. That's been something that has happened with me as well. If I'm working with something, embarking on something, the first 2 years, almost nothing happens, and all the magic only starts happening in the third year, maybe towards the fag end of the third year. The most famous story is that of Airbnb, which and YouTube has a video saying the first 1,000 days of Airbnb. In fact, their own breakthrough came after being in existence for 1,000 days.
Yeah, and then there is no other way. At least if we were that lucky, maybe we would have born in. Not lucky, I would say. If it was supposed to be that money would not be a challenge and you can do whatever, maybe you would have been born in one of those industrialist families. But in my case, it has been these 3. And even on staying positive, that's another thing. During these 3 years, so 3 years it will take. That's a given. Now, during these 3 years, what do you do to ensure that at the end of the day we're all energy, so right? We're all made up of energy, and your team members, your employees, your family members, everybody can sense when there is tension in the air. So it has to be a sum total of, it has to be like a combination of these 3 things always to say 1,000 days, decisions, right, wrong, positive. And positivity, to what lens I've gone to stay positive, I can't even tell you. So yeah.
You should maybe a couple of instances where your whole belief system about staying positive was truly tested or maybe pushed to the limits. Can you share?
Yeah, well, it is. I wouldn't say that it was challenged, but I would say where it brought me out. Maybe I could share those experiences. One was at a time when I had started. There was another co-founder who left abruptly, and we learned later that he was trying to do something similar, and that was a huge blow, because not only you lost a friend, you also lost a partner, right? And at that stage also it was this fact that I need to not let this get to my head, which kept me going. Then there were times when somebody copied the product blatantly. There was time when an investor who took out all the information went ahead and invested in the competition, and like it's like I said, it's not one. And what is more important is how do you deal with it. So, and then there were times when there were some advisors who would get too toxic by trying to draw a comparison. And in all these things, whenever I would be faced with it, the third thing, which is just to stay positive, came in. And one of the ways how I learned to deal with it was when I met this monk in New York. His name is Dandapani. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he talks about this concept of energy vampires.
Right.
And that I've written. I don't write. I don't do anything. But for this, I actually wrote an article on Medium which said that do you have energy vampires in your life? Because that concept resonates so much with me. Anybody who has toxic bosses, or if you're trying to start something up, and if you have a lot of people giving you advice, you must read more about this concept of energy vampires. And I just keep going back to this to say, is this my well-wisher or is this an energy vampire? If it's an energy vampire, just step back, and because you just cannot deal with them. So that's the mantra that I follow as a part of the 3 rules that categorize people, if possible, as energy vampires or people who positively impact you.
That's awesome. There's only so much you can do. You'd rather spend your energy on something that matters to you instead of fighting someone that you shouldn't even be doing in the first place, right?
You don't realize it could be your cousin. So again, to stress upon, because this is something again which I feel very strongly about, is it's all energy, right? There's some places where you just enter and you instantly light up. There are people you speak to, you feel positive. All energies, consciously, subconsciously, your energy is aligning with their energies, right? And an example of this, for a fact, that in my very close cousin's face, it's his mom who keeps on talking about him, getting married and 10 other expectations. And whenever he would talk to her, he would just come down completely drained. So similarly, you might not even realize that in your life there might be somebody who is saying things for your benefit, but it doesn't align with yourself. And an example of this could even be in Mahabharata, if you've heard about Mahabharata. So there was Krishna, Arjun, and there was Karna and King Shale. So
right.
There were two warriors, right? Arjun was on one side and Karna was on the other side. And Arjun had Krishna as his charioteer, and Karna, who was a more decorated warrior, a better archer, more potential, everything, had King Shale as his archer, as his charioteer. And whenever Arjun would be in any sort of doubt, Krishna would bring him out in a very good way by saying, no, you're so blessed, you're so good, you're doing great, you'll be fine. It's just to draw an example. And on the other side, in the case of Karna, King Shale would always tell Karna about places where he was lacking. And it's all energies. So very important, no matter what you're doing, to have that list ready and keep referring to it to say, let our energies not get negatively impacted, no matter what it is.
That's a terrific example. In fact, are there people that actually lift you up or put you down? Right? I think it comes down to that.
Oh, well, there are. Yeah, absolutely. I'm full of them. There are days when there are a couple of people in my life who I can't avoid, but I have to take their calls, But now, at least after I have been exposed to this concept, I know where to put them. It's the difference becomes in reacting and responding, right? I mean, you do not need to react. You do not need to engage. I still err at times. I would still react. I would still, retaliate. But I would say the episodes have come down to 7 on 10. Like 7 times I'll be quiet, 3 times I will retaliate. Earlier, it would be a 10 on 10 and it'll give me a headache for 3 days. So, yeah, and the people who lift me up positively, absolutely. My team does. So if I'm having a bad day, I'll just sit with some of the, people in the team and they're great. My kids do. I have 2 daughters. One is 8 and the other one's 2. Great for me. My wife, for instance, my co-founder, who's also my brother. These are people who would lift you up positively. And there are some, absolutely, who are the bulls in my life.
Good to know that you're surrounded by a set of people that you can rely on when you're down. In addition to avoiding toxic people, I personally follow another piece of advice, which is, I call it the fruit on the tree principle, or rather, it's not what I call it, to someone else that I used to know called it the fruit on the tree principle. It just goes like this: if you want an orange tree, you go to an orange. If you want an orange, you go to an orange tree. And if you're ill, you'll go to a physician or a doctor, right? So many times, for instance, my mother has been a big source of encouragement and then big influence in my life. And she has inspired me to do great things. But when I started up in India several years ago with my brother, and there were some misunderstandings that crept in, my mother came up with all sorts of advice. And that at that point in time, I realized that she doesn't understand what we are working on. And moreover, she doesn't have the fruit on the tree. So I just plainly told her, see, you don't understand what we are doing. So one aspect is getting advice from the right people, and I check whether they have the fruit on the tree. So if they've done something that I think that I'm doing right now or attempting, and they have some experience, then that advice is a lot more valuable. And the second thing is, are they my well-wisher, or the energy vampire metaphor that you used?
Yeah.
So when you combine the two, that can be a great filter for you to stay focused and make sure that you only get the right people and the right advice in your life.
Absolutely. No, there's no other way. And the second one also, when I say the one thing that I've realized, that we are not God, we'll take decisions, we'll go right and wrong. This, if you can even implement this to a certain extent, and I still struggle to do it. There are times when your insecurities would come in. What if this goes wrong? What if? And what if you really get down to what ifs are only, they are due to our social network that we have around us. If they tell you, go ahead, take decisions, they will go right, they will go wrong, no problem. Imagine how confident we'll be. They know that is the reason why no innovation, if you really look at it beyond a point, we've stopped innovating as a country. I think also, or at least I believe, I feel so. It's because we just don't we are risk averse. We are so risk averse. If something is going wrong, just keep doing this. And because, the minute it goes wrong, there are 100,000 people who come and tell you, see, I told you so. So the thing here is that if you have to actually, at the end of the day, listen to, I told you so, because you also cannot get everything right all the time. Might as well do stuff which gives you happiness. Yeah.
Totally. I definitely agree with you that we are far away from what we call as innovation. And LinkedIn is all the rage now about how GeoMeet seems to have copied Zoom.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. For a nation of 1.3 billion people, for the challenges that we face on a regular basis, we aren't doing nowhere near enough. And the funny thing is, I lived in the States for more than a decade, and I have always had an opportunity to contrast between the two. The economic system in the States is very, very unforgiving. You'll very rarely find people loitering around, sitting and not doing anything. Whereas in India, it's just the opposite. But I for one feel maybe we have too much security, and I don't know in which class of people, because the insecurity is what forces them to go out and look for things. And then we have so many classes of people that have some degree of security you can live by with so little money that people don't even have the basic encouragement to innovate. I totally agree with you. So let's talk about your employee side and the culture side of it. Was it ever a challenge to attract people? Because this is more of a mission, right? One is a product. The other thing is, whether you like it or not, there is an impact aspect built into it. And in order for that to continue until it becomes mainstream and no longer a taboo, it will in some sense take on the tones of a mission. Was attracting people ever a challenge? Or if not, how was the journey of attracting a good team of people?
Well, I think this is getting the right guys on board is an ongoing process. There is no one day where everybody came together. But in my case, I would say that I've been, again, very, very lucky. God has been extremely kind to have sent people who are somewhere aligned to the vision more than what our company is usually seen as. We're just not a product company. We are here when we talk about bringing a difference. We talk about breaking taboos. We talk about having responsible products, paying it forward. And I think some of those things, when you talk a little early in your life, in the journey, not many people buy it because what they can see is what you've done. Now, there are a lot of people who join us because of the journey, what we've covered. But initially, people were only joining because of whatever I said. So I'm glad that some of them took that leap of faith. And 6-7 of them have been there from day one, and those are the guys on which this whole organization is built. Was it difficult? Yes, it is, because when you look at good talent, it's very difficult for you to afford them initially. The talent which is coming with you with a lot of passion might not necessarily have the right experience, so you start afresh. And as you start going, so now hiring is not a challenge, to be honest. Earlier days, it was a challenge because it was a story. It was a story to say. So, there were so many things which were just not in line with the regular risk-taking appetite of a person. A new concept sold by a man who has no experience in this. There is no money in the sense, we were not funded. We bootstrapped it for the first couple of years. And working out of a non-office, like the first office was Rashi's office. My wife's office was the office. And then the second was in a village. We're still in a village area, but now the office at least is a little fancier. So there were challenges, but I think somewhere people saw that, what he's trying to do or what this team is trying to do is just goes beyond selling the product. So initially that is the thing that attracted people. Then slowly and steadily, the fact that media had also started to talk about us. We touchwood last 3-4 years have been very, very good for us in terms of recognition that we've got, whether in terms of awards or coverages. Then now people are seeing that it's not about the product per se, it's about the mission of the organization. So now it's not that big a challenge. But like I said, we still look at the good things. So good things were that we were able to hire and build this team. We're about 50 of us. So super proud of each and every one of them.
Interesting. The story and the conviction with which you talk about in the beginning is what attract some people. Do you have a hiring philosophy? What sort of people do you hire?
So the only philosophy there is, early or even now, the thing that we say very upfront to people is that except for, we can tolerate anything but lies, So here the culture is such that even somebody is going on a date, they tell me that, listen, I'm not going home because I'm unwell, but because I have a date, So that's clarified in the first. Before we give an offer letter, that's clarified. That listen, unless there is absolute faith and trust on each other, this is going to be called off no matter how good a performer you are. If we catch you lying, this is it. This will be over. So, and we have set many examples like that. So that's the only hiring philosophy. We don't really look for you to have any experience from the field. As long as you feel about what we're doing, we genuinely are here to solve issues with the products or with the services that solve that issue and might not necessarily be a big money spinner for us. So if you're aligned to that, if you're aligned to go on field, so to give you an example, this girl who joined us as an intern came back and joined us full time, and today she is the one who takes care of our paid forward campaign. She goes to GP Road, which is a traffic light area. Before COVID, she was regular. Now she's not going, but she loved what we're doing so much that she would go brothel to brothel and speak to these DDs and get them to get them to come on to cups instead of rags and everything else that they were using. Now imagine for a city girl, parents in Delhi, she did a BCA, and after that she's doing this on the field. These people then sell their stories to their parents on their own. And that's the only thing we look for. We look for common values system to say, come back with products that will help. So yeah, that's the philosophy at hiring. Please never lie. And second, do you also believe that we need to do something about this space? And if the answer is yes, we have a game on.
Interesting. How do you uncover the value alignment? Is there something that you follow, or is it a trial and error?
It is, as of today, trial and error. So we don't hire till we meet. We look for certain things in the profile. Like, I love to know about passions. I love to know about the hobbies. That's what we discuss. We usually do not discuss work. But yeah, it's just trying to understand if the alignment is there in something. So if you're passionate about anything, it could be music. How often do you practice? Do you keep going back to it? Do you keep quitting? So small hints from there. But yeah, there is no one formula. With the psychographic tests and all those other tests, I don't know how much they work. My team now does all that. But in my case, it's more gut driven than any sheet talking to me.
Interesting. I like the no lying and the absolute trust policy. I remember, I think 4 years ago, we were recruiting a bunch of tech developers for our tech team, and we had already given online tests. We had shortlisted a bunch of people. We called in all of them for a face-to-face. And you won't believe me, all of that, those face-to-face communications were sent out on a Thursday. On Monday morning, we get 2 calls from 2 separate people. We know for a fact that they're not related, they're not connected. One is from Kerala and the other person is from somewhere in Maharashtra. And both of them say, my grandmother has passed away, and then we won't be able to make it to the interview. So I keep joking that in India, if only real grandmothers and grandfathers died as often as their grandchildren killed them, we would have possibly had a much lighter population right now. So, but the no lying policy is that's the first time I'm hearing that, and I totally agree with you that trust is such a bedrock of great performance. Having a great performer but untrustworthy, or somebody who breaks your trust, is definitely way damaging than having an average performer who's trustworthy, right?
No, so and we say this on day one. Like I said, once we hire, that's the last thing I tell them. Earlier there was a lot of melodrama in the dialogue. I would say that because back then we were Salman Khan fans, so we would say that हमें सिर्फ 2 चीजों से नफरत है, एक झूठ और दूसरा झूठ. So as a joke, it would be said in that spirit. But it has become our reality. We tell them that. So what I usually tell them is that I'm not a principal here. My job is not to keep an eye on you and see what you're doing. You are helping me take this journey forward. So you are more accountable than I am on this one. So I have 100% trust and faith in what you are saying you're doing. There are no cameras, there are no bugs here, to understand what you're doing. And eventually performance shows. Yeah, I think we've also gone wrong with this philosophy. Our trust has also been taken for a ride a couple of times. But we have gotten it right more than we've gotten it wrong. And because that's the philosophy we live by, we stick to it.
Great. So two things I want to talk about. One is the distribution part. Obviously, this is a physical product, and many times while online has definitely caught up, it has helped maybe a product of this sort, which is possibly more metro-ish, while it is required by everybody, but more metro-ish. Most of, for example, the outdoor, while it doesn't obviously solve the defecation problem to a great extent, a lot of the outdoors can definitely be clean as a result of this. People can have personal hygiene. How did your scale happen? Were there any distribution hacks that you did? What was that journey like?
So we initially thought this will start selling from stores. So made offline distributors, and that backfired. Online, there was no category. So there was no category for female urination devices. So Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa didn't know where to put them. So we got that category created. And early on, I think by 2015-16, it was clear that e-commerce is growing. Some of our customers are there. And most of the issues that we were solving were for women who were stepping out of the house. So because they're stepping out of the house, they might have to change their pads at office. So how do they throw it? So we came up with disposal bags for clean and hygienic disposal. She might be at work, might get down, might get periods, might get pain. So we came up with these herbal period pain relief patches. If she gets any sort of rashes, India's first natural anti-chaffing cream was created. So because they were all the products that made life for our urban women easier, we took the online route. And that today also happens to be one of the major routes for us. And that's the distribution for us. You could buy the products on obviously peebuddy.in, on thesirona.com, or obviously on marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa. And we're still going strong there, even internationally in US or UK. We were sticking to online as the primary mode of our outreach for our pure B2C business. Now we also, while we do this, we've not forgotten our promise to ourselves that we'll not only impact lives of those who can afford our products, but also those who cannot. So we have 3 paid forward programs. So if you go to our website, thesirona.com, and if you go to cause, there are 3 projects we run for traffic sex workers, for the underprivileged women, and for adolescent girls, and they're called Anadya, and so on. And for all these programs, we take these to rural India, and we talk about menstrual hygiene. A part of the core team, we have Dr. Diksha, who's part of our core team, and she takes these classes on menstrual hygiene management and how to take care of it. And we've done it in Rajasthan, Nepal, recently in Malawi as well. So that's where the rural link is. So there we are saying we will reach out to them through our own budget, through our own paid forward, through our own products. And for urban, we'll keep it online. We are there in some stores in NCR as well, but we are purposely not expanding offline as of now. It's a very expensive channel to grow.
Right. And from a funding perspective, how many rounds of funding have you raised so far?
Well, so like I said, first couple of years bootstrapped. Then we raised one angel round from Indian Angel Network, which was for around $450,000, which was in Jan 2017. And in Jan 2019, we raised another 250K round from them.
What sort of numbers were you showing when you raised these 2 rounds?
Oh, well, the first one, we were not doing anything. I think we were doing, the first round when it came in, we were doing about 1 crore a year.
Okay.
Then next time when we went to them, we were doing that year, I think we were on a run rate of about 7 crores. Yeah. So now we're talking to a few funds for our Series A. We're just deciding where do we have the right alignment with the investors.
Right. Awesome. In our pre-interview prep, I mentioned that I would talk about a product in Chicago O'Hare Airport. The usual commodes, obviously in India, a lot of people don't pay attention on it. They don't even know how to use them because the airport gets so much traffic, and Chicago Airport being what it is, the second or the third busiest airport, certain points in time, there is a device that is attached to the seat, and what it does is it flips over a plastic covering. So when somebody finishes, they just wave their hand at a sensor, and then it flips over a plastic covering, which takes the hygiene to a next level. So I see that in India, even when there are toilets accessible, most of them are not hygienic at all, and they're very poorly maintained. God knows when we are going to realize that this is an area that requires a deep amount of support and commitment. Shauchalaya campaign and all of that notwithstanding, I don't think we've even solved this problem anyway meaningfully or partially meaningfully, even in urban areas yet. Forget the villages. So more power to you guys.
Thank you so much. Like I said, whether it's toilets or any fem hygiene issue, we are trying to constantly work on products to solve it. And that's why we exist. Yeah, that's the whole reason why the whole organization today is working.
So reflecting on your journey, Deep, is there anything that you would change? I know you are a bit of a philosophical man, I can tell. Would you change anything? If there was something that you could change or do differently, what would it be?
It wouldn't be anything, to be honest.
I thought so.
I will again the same way, because again we are here wherever we are. It could have been 10x of this. It could have been 10x minus of wherever we are. It's all the decisions that we've taken, and these decisions, I know wherever they've got us, and I'm in a happy state. Obviously, we have miles to go, but won't change anything. Yeah.
So, what would the next 5 years look like now that you've established a firm footing? What do you see in store for your journey ahead?
Well, I'd say an IPO in 5 years, presence in 4 countries wherever we are selling small, revenues in the neighborhood of about 150 to 200 crores. That's all. We are able to reach that.
Awesome. Well, Deep, I can definitely tell that you're an amazing blend of business acumen and product expertise, and then impact as well, all rolled into one. You're multi-talented, multifaceted personality, and your philosophical underpinnings have obviously kept you going, brought you this far. It is one thing to do something for personal success, but a totally different thing to positively affect millions of lives. So awesome. It has been a fabulous conversation. We enjoyed, learned a lot, and more importantly, your demeanor and your positive attitude. Any closing thoughts for the listeners of Maharajas of Scale in terms of entrepreneurs that are contemplating starting up, doing something? What would your advice to them be?
No, so on your first thought, thank you so much for being so kind with your words. It is actually a great conversation. We didn't plan it to go this way out of the things that we've picked on. So thank you for this. And the only piece of advice is, guys, just stay positive and go for it. There are no businesses which are built on Excel sheets. Excel sheets never lie. So just go for it with a positive frame of mind. If you can find some good advisors, or like I said, non-energy vampires, find them, embrace them. Go ahead, give it your best. Things will fall in place.
Awesome. Maharajas of Scale, I'm sure will see Peebuddy and Sirona scale greater heights. Post episode, I think we will kick off a couple of initiatives at a couple of villages. We will be there to cheer you and come back and interview you again to see what that vantage point looks like, and what new set of learnings and then experiences you have to share with our listeners. So have a wonderful day, Deep, and we'll talk soon.
You too. Thank you so much. It was an honor being here. Thanks a lot.
We hope you enjoyed this story. If this story made a difference to you, tell us by leaving a comment on the website or our social media channels. Help us spread the love by subscribing, liking, and sharing our show. We welcome speaker suggestions and collaborations. Write to me at nida@maharajasofscale.com.